Hey everyone, Dan Gvozden here. Now before we get into the show, I wanted to apologize about the audio quality in this episode. I had a bit of a microphone malfunction that I didn't notice until we were finished recording. The episode is still a fun listen, but it isn't up to our usual standards. We'll definitely have this sorted out by the next episode. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show anyway.
Too many who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. I'll be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon. They'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The amazing spider talk. The amazing spider talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the amazing spider talk.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, the founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at Superior Spider Talk.
Thanks, everybody, for joining our 21st episode of our coverage of Volume 4 of Amazing Spider-Man. Break out the alcohol, Mark.
Yeah, this episode has become an adult.
All right. We hope you enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture. Can we drink? I mean, Peter doesn't drink, so do we hold ourselves to the same ethical standards?
Well, I think we already broke that promise on our 100th episode.
That's Dan. True. We did drink. When you turn 100, you're allowed to drink.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But for 21, because these episodes are going backwards. You realize we went from 100 to 21.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So in this drinking age ready episode of Amazing Spider Talk, we will be discussing Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 21 by Dan Slott, Christos Gage, and Giuseppe Camacoli. Then we'll respond to your comments and emails, have a few voicemails. We got a little bit of spider news and some Swarms B-title reviews, sorta, with some announcements attached to it.
All right, very exciting, Mark. I guess let's go back in time of a sort, because all these Amazing Spider-Man issues seem to be flashbacks, to discuss Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 21.
It's not that easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves, when I think it could be nicer being red or yellow or gold or something much more colorful like that. It's not that easy being green.
It's time to talk about this issue. I've been recapping them recently, so this time I'm throwing it at you. Walk me through what happens in this issue.
All right. Well, as briefly as possible, because there actually isn't a ton of plot to go over here. But we kind of catch up. After our last episode, we were talking about where did Kane come from? Well, this episode answers that. We find out that Kane has been reborn again via the web of life and our favorite people, the Master Weavers, and all that mystical crystal stuff from Spider-Verse. However, the other is no longer a part of his genetic makeup or whatever you want to call it, and he's dying, Dan. He's degenerating because he's got the whole clone degeneration thing that was part of Kane's backstory, from the 90s when Howard Mackey and Terry Cavanaugh were working on him. Go listen to that episode for more on that. So we basically get an issue of Kane trying to get to the bottom of what exactly is going on with New You and the spread of the carry-on virus, and how on these other worlds that he's been exploring, New You and Parker Industries have been teaming up. And because of this team up, the carry-on virus is inadvertently spreading throughout, starting zombie apocalypses on all these alternate Earths. We also get a little bit of background on how Kane and Spider-Gwen from Earth 65 crossed paths, which then more or less brings us to where things ended in Clone Conspiracy number 2 with Gwen captured in the back of a trunk, which is still just the weirdest thing in the world for me. And
don't forget to mention that they discover like how all this carrying stuff like works out with Peter and Miles Warren in their lab.
Well, you brought it up, so why don't you say it then?
Well, yeah. So they like they go to another universe, and Peter and Gwen and they discover Peter and Miles Warren in a lab, as we suspected, teamed up, and the carrion virus breaks out, and then Kane has to fight another Kane for some reason that I'm not really aware of.
I believe I summarized that. I didn't go into blow-by-blow detail, all right. Like, come on, this is a synopsis. It's not a page-by-page summary here, Dan.
Go buy the issue, and you'll know exactly what happened.
As I say, yes, Parker Industries and New You, team up, and that is what perpetuates the spread of the carry-on virus on these alternate universes. And so now the goal for Kane and Spider-Gwen is to stop it from happening on Earth 616, if that's what it's even still called in the post-Secret Wars universe. And that's kind of where we leave things off.
Mark, can I ask you a question following up on our last discussion?
Sure.
Our last discussion, we kind of both expressed that like this whole multiverse stuff was really not what we wanted out of this story. But I think
that's true.
I think with this chapter, we've kind of put the nail in the coffin of that. It seems as though moving forward will only be in the Earth Prime or whatever, and not dealing with all these other destroyed multiverse, universe, whatevers. Does that excite you again for the main series, that perhaps we won't be dealing with this garbage anymore?
I don't know, because you also can't really officially rule it out just based on some of the plot beats in this issue. But I mean, I don't know. I think that maybe the well has been poisoned a little bit here, just because this was certainly not a hook that I was expecting to see in this story. I mean, we kind of thought we were getting Clones Part 3, and it just turned out to be this mishmash of all these other like greatest hits albums that Dan Slott has been trying to put together over the course of his run. And I think there's some tonal discord with those ideas. So I mean, does it excite me again? Not necessarily. I mean, am I like going to sit there and also harbor resentment for this story for even going there? No, but it just to me, like, it's kind of a red flag to be much more discerning and cynical about this story, because it just seems that the a more appropriate flow of it is, we're not going to get that. We're not going to get a more appropriate flow for this story. So it's like, okay, fine. So maybe you course corrected here, but what are we going to get next? Like if we start revisiting Spider Island and we start revisiting Ends of the Earth and we start revisiting Big Time, I mean, like, this has to be more than just Dan Slott spiking his own football over and over again.
Are we going to get the Future Door showing up?
Yeah, like he loves to pay all that stuff off, so wouldn't be shocked. But Dan, I mean, to the larger point, also with the way this storyline is being structured, I mean, I think we talked about it a bit when we talked about Amazing Spider-Man number 20, how they were kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul in terms of putting the main forward narrative in the Clone Conspiracy series and then doing these like flashbacks that don't necessarily, based on the amount of plot they're giving us, don't necessarily need or require their own issues to give it to us. But I mean, structurally, the series is at least consistent right now with how they're kind of going back and forth. But consistency aside, does it work for you?
I mean, it's hard to like build momentum and really feel the kind of like forward thrust of this story when we're spending so much time reading about what happened before. And I think that was a large complaint of ours in Clone Conspiracy #2, is it was just kind of like rehashing previous events. And when you've got 2 other issues so far that are also rehashing previous events, it's really kind of stalled out the launch of this series. And maybe we'll ramp up and we'll get to some serious forward momentum. But I mean, even just reading this, I dread having a scene where Kane and Spider-Gwen tell Peter about this story that we just read. I mean, it's just so much hemming and hawing. Yeah, I appreciate the consistency, but like, I wonder if there was a more natural way to fit this in so it felt like we were just moving forward with all of this stuff. I mean, it's not fun to read a story when you know the outcome and the story itself isn't that shocking. Like, you and I basically guessed every plot beat of this story last episode and then just read this story,
Yeah, I mean, and that's definitely problematic. And talking about red flags when it comes to these comics, I mean, say what you will about Dan Slott and, the kind of work he's done over the years, but, one thing that he really has never been is predictable. I mean, maybe sometimes to a fault, maybe sometimes he should have done what was predictable. Swerved us for the sake of swerving. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Dan, we and this is not me puffing my chest out, but we kind of speculated over what this issue was going to be beat for beat, and that's what we got. And that's just kind of like, not to be glib, but what am I spending my $3.99 for if I can just tell you what I know is going to come in the next issue? I mean, that's really.
It's not even that, though. It's like it wasn't even it didn't take any grand speculation on our part. Like, I think it's all there in the context of the previous story.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, speculation is probably not the right word. We read the text, and this was what we gleaned from the text, and then that was reaffirmed in this issue.
Yeah, there's a version of this story where this was 3 panels of the next issue of the Clone Conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I think it probably, I mean, I don't hate this tale. It was fine. I think half the issue is just here's the problem is half the issue is joyless exposition. There's no fun being had with it. There's no character development. It's just updating, giving raw updating on how to get from A to B. And there's I'll give it. There's 1 or 2 nice character moments between Gwen and Kane where you feel some warmth to their friendship. But do I want to read an issue about Karn and Kane talking to each other and high-fiving that they both have K names?
Right. Or that, wait, no, I'm not trying to eat you anymore. Didn't you read the last 40 issues of Marvel Comics to know that? Because here's what happened in them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you talk about the warmth between Kane and Gwen, but, at the same token, you can mention character moments and not having any, but I also, not to be mean, I don't feel that Slott and, by proxy Gage particularly get who these characters are in this story. I mean, it's they're taking characters that were better fleshed out in better ways by other creators and kind of slotifying them to fit this story. But certain interactions might have some resonance in the context of this story, but when you look at it from the bigger picture of who these people are, I don't know what really makes sense here. You know what I mean? Like
there's a lot of name dropping, like Aracely and things like that make you go, oh, at least they know what happened, but it doesn't read like Kane. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kane was even less problematic to me than Gwen. I mean, Kane has problems. I'm not saying that, but Gwen especially. I mean, like I'm reading this version of Spider-Gwen, and I'm like, saying to myself, did the people writing this even open an issue of Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez series? Because this character has nothing to do with that character.
And she even says, "Face it, Tiger, you need help." Why is she saying Mary Jane's catchphrase?
I don't know, because she's the drummer in the band that played that song. I'm no prizing it here, Dan.
Okay, all right, I'll buy that, Mark.
I mean, no, but that's that. It's the she doesn't speak like that character. I mean, like I especially found it like cringeworthy when it was like when she was like prancing around in the 70s era Gwen outfit, being like, this isn't my style, but it's kind of groovy, except for these heels. And it's just like,
well, that's where they tried to put in like the modern day Gwen with the like, oh, these heels are just the patriarchy,
Yeah, but
like, okay.
Yeah, it just it fell flat to me because it was like I don't, this it really could just be anybody saying these words. I mean, that's the thing, is these are just words on a page coming out of a character's mouth. They have nothing to actually do with the character, and that sounds kind of damning. But if I have issues, going back to your original question about the universe hopping and everything. I mean, like, to me, I will just say outright, I think Spider-Gwen's involvement in this story ruins it for me. Not because I dislike Spider-Gwen. I like Spider-Gwen quite a lot. That's the thing. It's like, there's nothing more 90s than the fact that Spider-Gwen was kind of like shoehorned into this story, because I feel like she's really got nothing to do with this. It's not like she has. Yes, I know Gwen Stacy has always been a player in the various clone stories, but like, I don't know, Spider-Gwen is her own thing right now, and like probably should just be left alone. I don't quite get.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact, like, oh well, she's popular and the kids like her, let's put her in there. I mean, we're already dealing with like tie-ins with Silk. It's like, now granted, Silk isn't in this book at least, but now her book is a clone conspiracy tie-in, and it's like, why does everything have to get sucked into this? Like, it's
rebuilding to a maximum carnage here.
Yeah, well, yeah. So,
with that villain spread from the previous issue, we're like, we are approaching the same level of who is that as maximum carnage.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, do you feel as strongly as I do about Gwen's involvement here?
I agree. She has never been involved in the clone world, so like, why bring in an outsider? Like, keep it small and focused and on everybody who is typically involved in the clone world. Yeah,
I mean, Kane, I get, Miles Warren. But yeah,
even Dr. Octopus, because Ultimate Dr. Octopus was behind the Clone Saga in that universe.
Right, and Doc Ock was killed by Kane during the original Clone Saga too. So there's linkage, there's lineage there.
Yeah.
It just seems very, like I said, 90s to me. Like hey, let's make a super team with Ghost Rider, Punisher, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man. Why would we do that? because it would sell, damn it.
I mean, this is one of the most 90s issues I've ever read. It's like Carrion, Clones, The New Warriors, and
yeah, I forgot all about that series.
Yeah.
I forgot that they redid that series a few years ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I like the kind of weird lip service they give to it. It's like, oh, remember they were in Spider-Verse, kind of.
Remember when this was around for like 7 issues in 2013?
These people aren't dead.
Yeah. Yeah, like what did happen to Arasley and all them? I don't remember.
They all died of something called cancellation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite the disease.
Yeah. Never to be heard from again. It's hard to talk about this issue because I feel like we've kind of already talked about it last episode because there's really not that much new to discuss here.
Well, yeah, but we should mention the horrible degenerative disease that Kane is going through right now.
Yeah, right. Well, Common Coley, he by the end of the issue, Kane looks awful. I mean, he's got this really ragged beard and his skin looks like it's falling apart. But my favorite unintentionally hilarious moment in this is when he says to Gwen, "You don't want to look like me," and he pulls his mask off and he just looks totally normal.
Yeah, like a pale shade of green.
Yeah, I mean, it's like super pale. Like,
yeah,
I would never have noticed it unless it had been pointed out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I laughed the way you did, but I definitely did a triple take of what am I looking, what is this? What's going on? But alas.
Oh my goodness. What did you think of the actual battle with Kane versus Kane?
I mean, it was fun. I mean, but again, I don't know what's Monster Kane doing in that scenario, because wouldn't Monster Kane be, he wasn't really at Miles Warren's side during the original Clone Saga. He kind of broke off to hunt Ben Reilly down. So it just, cool visual, but not necessarily a sensible one, right?
Yeah, I just want to know what he's doing there.
Yeah, he
doesn't by his measure, he doesn't like Peter Parker or Miles Warren. Why would he be hanging around?
Yeah. I mean, I know he was hanging around as Tarantula in Spider Island, but again, he was under control, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't that
he was, yeah.
Now here's something, and I don't mean to be dense here, but I did find it odd that in all of these different timelines, basically the same thing kept happening regarding New You and Parker Industries. I mean, isn't that kind of part of the allure of the multiverse, is that these are all different timelines and different events happen in different sequences, which therefore makes things dramatically different from each other? I mean, aren't we under the I mean, what is this like a bunch of different worlds where the same exact thing played out the same exact way? I mean, that's again, it's okay. I mean, you can no prize it or whatever, but it's also just, what's the joy in that? It's just plot device. That's all it is.
You could solve that by giving us something fun. I would love to see a Carrion version of Leo Pardon.
Yeah.
Why not?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, no, but seriously, isn't that the whole point of them? I mean, then at one point where it's Kane says to Gwen, "Oh, aren't you worried about your world?" She's like, "Oh, don't worry, Peter Parker's dead on my world, so this can't possibly happen this way."
Yeah.
That's that's not what the multiverse is.
Well, my bigger issue is, here's Karn. The minute that Kane bursts out of his other body, which was at the end of Spider-Verse, which was, 25 issues ago? Yeah. And this guy has just been sitting on this knowledge. You know what? Let's not tell Peter Parker about this because it'll create drama or whatever.
Well, why doesn't anybody tell Peter Parker anything in this comic? Like I love how and we talked about this last episode, but like when Kane and Gwen are like, maybe we should tell Peter about this. Nah, let's figure it out ourselves first. Like, come on. Like, what are you? That is like, you're not even trying. That's terrible. Like, come on, seriously. Like, I shouldn't even be having to have this conversation in 2016.
I mean, but it cuts to the core of this is that there's no character-based drama or conflict in this. It's all manufactured conflict, like based on nothing. Like this whole thing could be solved by just shooting Peter a text that says, "Hey, New You is bad stuff. Don't get mixed up with them." And then he'd be like, "Why?" And then you send him a picture of a bunch of carrion zombies. This is why, like what?
Yeah, I mean, beyond the point that I still don't understand. I mean, we're the part of the premise of the storyline that Peter is going to quote unquote, get into bed with New You, like, I don't know, it's taking a major leap of faith about who this character is too, because I don't know, like, regardless of Peter's guilt, and I know that Dan Slott loves to play up Peter's guilt and that makes him do stupid things, but like, seeing all these dead people and stuff, like, I just don't see him as someone to be like, yeah, this is normal, we should do work with these people. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like, it's that I still haven't been sold on that element, which is probably the key element of the whole story, which is like, why is there conflict in the first place? Like, I'm just like, they're serving it up on a silver platter for me, and I'm just going, nah, that wouldn't happen.
But I mean, like, the whole thing could be avoided by just not having Kane and Spider-Gwen in this. Like, if it played out like Spider Island, where Peter suddenly discovered, like Jerry, right? His former, employee, whose body he found floating in that tank, in that really creepy visual. He goes, what's going on here? And he opens a door in New You or whatever and discovers a bunch of carrion monsters, just like he discovered people were turning into giant spiders. Then you've got, like, drama that plays out in the moment. But you've got these two characters that know everything and are really going to be the proactive ones and are still just for no reason refusing to tell Peter about it. It's like, why include it then? Why even, just for the sake of, closing up a couple loopholes?
Because I want to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like, not to mention that, like, the idea of the mass population turning into monsters, we've done that before.
Yeah.
Haven't we?
We've said that last time too. Yeah. I mean, we did that in Spider Island. We did that in the Lizard story. We'll probably do it again. Besides the Kane not easy being green, which really isn't Camo's fault. That's a colorist issue. But what did you think of Camo's work here?
I thought it was fine. I actually thought the first few pages in that flashback where we saw the events of Spider Island, or not Spider Island, Spider-Verse rather, I thought those were really, like, beautiful to look at. At least the coloring and the kind of faded, muted colors. And I think I kind of realized that I think Camo works best when he's, like, lightly inked. He's got more colors to fill in his thin pencils. Because, like, the rest of the issue is a lot of, like, deep, rich blacks. And I find, like, his stuff becomes really flat. The space becomes really compressed. But those colors in the beginning, I was like, this is how his work should be complemented. I don't know. Did you feel the same way, or am I...
No, I think that's a good analysis. I mean, I always think back to, some of my favorite work that Camo did, both during, like, Goblin Nation, but also, like, I always think back to that spread with during Superior with Mary Jane kind of walking, strutting down the street and stuff. And it was kind of like a light, airy, it wasn't an overdone, it wasn't overdone in terms of pencils and inks and everything like that. And I think that's where he thrives. That's where there's some life to it when he gets heavily inked. It just kind of becomes flat, and that's when you get like Aunt May, who looking like a carry-on monster in that one.
Yeah, right. Like, Kane should have taken his mask off and looked like Aunt May.
Right?
Look what you've done. I look like my aunt.
Like then I would have been like, damn, somebody get this guy a doctor. Yeah. I mean, so it was fine. I liked his interpretation of '90s Kane. I thought that was kind of fun, and yeah, I mean, and it was nice to see Kane kind of slowly fall apart issue by issue. Although that beard caught me off guard. It came out of nowhere. I wish I could grow a beard that fast. Yeah, well, that's like didn't Peter rock the beard in Spider-Man Wolverine, Astonishing Spider-Man Wolverine?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. It's a good look for him.
Yeah, it's impressive. Impressive beard. I can't grow a beard, Dan. It just comes in like scraggly and peach fuzzy on me. So
I'm lucky that I can, because being bald, I've got to kind of like have hair somewhere, So
right. Understood.
You got to level, balance. You got to ride the balance.
Well, we could always just turn you upside down and make your chin your head. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I think I've played with that before. It didn't work out.
What's your grade, Dan?
I'm giving this one a C-, just like last week.
Yeah, I'm doing the same here. C-. Right. I guess I should state it clearly so as not to confuse.
C-.
C-.
All right, let's talk about your comments and emails, shall we?
We should.
Okay.
So you, as you know, because you're the guy who runs the show here, you can always email us at amazingspidertalk@gmail.com or tweet at us on the Twitter by hashtagging OK2Print, leaving us comments on our iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play accounts, and of course, leaving us voicemails at 9 Red Goblin, which is what we got this week. We got 3 of them, Dan.
Yeah, we asked for people's theories about the Man in Red, and we got a bunch of them, and they are wild.
All right, well, this first one's from Kyle, so let's hear what Kyle's got to say.
Hey, guys, it's Kyle Kreis. Love all the theories about who the Man in Red is. My one problem with the Norman Osborn theory is, weren't there teasers in the first arc of Volume 4 that actually showed Norman Osborn trying to make this like African warlords? He was bandaged in the face, wearing the green and purple motif, at the same time that the Man in Red was recruiting the Lizard and the Rhino. So could it be the one and the same, or were they teasing another Norman story down the line? Maybe when Zodiac saw a year into the future, was there any teases there? I can't remember if we saw that scene. Keep it up, and I'll talk to you soon.
It's a good point about Norman there, Dan.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I am going to rescind my Norman. You want to know why?
Well, because they refer to him as Miles in this issue. They
do, and an eagle-eyed listener to this show sent me some leaked artwork, which I will include in the podcast here, that I had not seen, of an issue from August of next year. They already have the cover painted of Norman Osborn with a machine gun firing at Peter Parker, and it says like the end of Parker Industries. And it's like the image looks like the Spectacular Spider-Man magazine cover.
Yeah.
Just with Norman without a mask and a machine gun.
Sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, it's an Alex Ross cover, so like.
Yeah, it probably looks. I should rephrase that. It probably looks great, but
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It sounds like the African warlord thing.
All right. Well,
So
good job.
I'm rescinding Norman Osborn and saying, Ron Friends, that was a really nice visual motif, but you really threw me off.
God damn it, Ron Friends. Sure, he'd appreciate that. We'll have to send Joey the elbow after him.
There we go. So, Kyle, thanks for that. I think you're right. It is not Norman Osborn, and consider me 100% wrong. Unless I end up being right, which I don't think I will now.
Yeah. Don't be like some people who put 98% odds on certain things of importance.
Well, I think this is a far more important thing than the thing you're alluding to.
The consequences are far more dire. Okay, mysterious voicemail. That's what this is being listed as. I'm reading the notes, people. So let's see what's so mysterious.
I don't know who this one is from. That's why.
All right. Well, let's hear it.
Hey guys, I have an idea who the man in red might be. We know that he is young. We know that he has a thing for clones and the ability to continue that work. And we know that he wants to do good. So my suggestion is that the original Miles Warren, after making a clone of Gwen Stacy, she has a history of making babies with Spider-Man villains. So the man in red is the child of Miles Warren and a Gwen Stacy clone, and he's trying to clean up his father's image. And the only reason why he has a Gwen Stacy clone hanging around him is because it reminds him of his mom. It might be right. It's as good a guess as any. Keep up the good work, guys. Love the podcast.
It is as good a guess as any.
I would say. I mean, I don't hate it.
Sins past. We're going to touch all the third rails here.
Oh boy, yeah. But it's not. Outside of the fact that it's Gwen siring more children with villains. Not, I don't think it's totally off the wall. It's certainly in terms of where things are lately in the world of Spider-Man. Like you said, good as guess as any.
All right, let's listen to our final voicemail from Elliot.
Yeah, he's back. Elliot's friend hasn't hooked me up with those annual issues yet, though.
No,
I'm a little despondent about that.
Sometimes you might have to actually earn the annuals yourself, Mark.
Well, I was gonna earn it by spending money on them, but it was like, hey, what issues are you missing? I'm like, well, I have all the issues. Let's be clear here.
Oh, well, that's why he's not responding, because he's on my side.
But to put some certain people at ease, mainly Dan and Zeke, because Zeke is as bad as you are in terms of harassing me about it, mind you. Yeah, I mentioned to Elliot's friend who apparently is a deals in comics. I'm like, oh well, if you came across the annuals that I'm missing that are actually count, like Annual 1 and Annual 3, which are really at this point the only ones that aren't reprints that I don't own.
You gotta own the reprints.
Yeah, because I really need to own that Hulk story from 119 and 120 again and spend $40 on it. But haven't heard anything back. So Elliot, we're playing your voicemail, but talk to your friend. Get me my annual so this guy can shut up, okay?
This is the longest guilt trip ever. Let's listen to this thing.
Hey, Amazing Spider Talk. It's Elliot, the Clone Saga apologist again, with some continuity reminders. So there was talk in the most recent Clone Conspiracy #1 episode that Miles Warren is smart enough to never, or to understand that they'd never have a relationship with Gwen Stacy. But in the Clone Saga, the 90s Clone Saga, he did have a relationship with Gwen Stacy, or at least the Miles Warren clone, Warren Miles, had a relationship with Gwen Stacy. Sorry, not Gwen Stacy, but the Gwen Stacy clone. So a clone of Gwen Stacy and a clone of Miles Warren were in a relationship for a long period of time in the 90s. So I guess it is possible. Also, a continuity error, I think, with that retcon of Gwen Stacy realizing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man at the end of Clone Conspiracy #1 in the 90s Clone Saga, there is a moment where the Gwen clone, the main Gwen clone, discovers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and she flips her lid, basically the same way she does at the end of Clone Conspiracy #1, saying, "You're the man who killed my father," and then getting really upset about it. That's definitely a contradiction. And lastly, just a note. Sins Past, where Norman Osborn has a relationship with Gwen Stacy. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of that story. I don't think any or most people are fans of that story, but I don't like the idea of somebody just ignoring continuity. I mean, that's what many writers are guilty of with the 90s Clone Saga. It's a big story, and I think another writer can take that content and either at least touch on it or turn it into something better. And I think it would be a good reason if Norman Osborn is the Man in Red for him to hide his face, if he has purposes for Gwen, to hide that he was the person who was intimate with her in the past. Anyway, obviously writers don't need to be slaves to continuity, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So keep up the good work. Thanks for listening. So long.
So we got like 2 people bringing up Sins Past in the span of one episode, Dan. Is that a record?
Yeah, it might be.
So do we need to do Sins Past for an essential?
I think we're going to have to talk about it at some point.
Right.
Well, let's take about this one thing at a time. Warren Miles, I had totally forgotten about the existence of this character.
Yeah, well, that's, and this is coming from someone who has reread the Clone Saga a few times recently and spent, about an hour and a half on the phone with 2 of its writers. But yeah, I missed that one. Yeah,
so good deep dive there. The second one about that inconsistency, another thing I didn't remember, but that makes a lot of sense. But I think the way to no prize your way out of that is that these clones in this version retain their memories to the moment of their death, whereas the ones in the original Clone Saga, he had to inject memories into them. So it's not the same thing, even though it seems very similar. Is that right?
No, you're right, and that's, to me, you would totally win a no prize for that.
Okay. I don't even think I have to win a no prize. I think that's actually what the basis of the stories are.
Yeah.
And then about Sins Past and people building on it, what do you think about that, Mark? Do you think, it's fine for people to ignore this continuity because it's so despised?
Well, it's not even that. Well, here's the thing. For one, I think this is all moot anyway because I don't think the Man in Red is Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the thing. It's when would you even build on Sins Past unless you would have some kind of interaction with Norman Osborn and Gwen, and when would you have that outside of a clone story and where it's not the same thing anyway? You know what I mean? So.
But what do you think about it in general? Do you think it's okay for a universally reviled story to be forgotten and kind of written out of continuity, or do you think it's better for people to kind of build on what was there, even if it's hated?
Well, no. I mean, I think we've over history have seen plenty of reviled stories get built upon. I mean, One More Day, the Clone Saga itself, at its time, at one point was considered untouchable in a bad way. I think the issue with Sins Past is, kind of in the sphere of where things are, and at the time, I mean, there's nothing to build on from it. I mean, they tried to do something with Gabrielle and the other Stacy twin.
I forget her name too.
Yeah. Not Gwen.
Looks like Gwen, but not Gwen.
But then that got pushed aside. And then they kind of tried to play with Gabriel again in American Son, but I don't know. I just don't know what there's to build upon there. I mean, yeah, I don't think you can completely, just because you don't like how a story was received as an editor or creator, I don't think that you can completely wash it from existence when it would be appropriate to reference it, but like when's it appropriate? I mean, yeah, if it turns out that Norman Osborn's the Man in Red and he's operating with the real Gwen Stacy, who's been revived through New You, and they don't touch upon that, then that could be a missed opportunity. It's just weird. It's like, then did Sins Past happen or no?
I'm still caught up in that line from, the first Clone Conspiracy issue where he says, like, I don't want a relationship with you. I want, like, a partnership with you. And to me, that seemed like a very Norman Osborn thing to say, but maybe it's a reformed Miles Warren. I guess let's address this now. Are we done speculating about who the Man in Red is?
I'm done speculating until I'm given reason to speculate again.
Yeah, because it seems so clearly that it's just Miles Warren in a face mask.
Like I said, I mean, I still wish that if there truly is no there, I really do wish that we would just see his face. But, I think we might be overreading that. Maybe we're not seeing his face as for far more benign reasons, or maybe not benign reasons, but there's a mystery to it, but not the mystery we think is there.
Yeah, that's fair. And then there's the whole half the internet that thinks it's Peter Parker or Ben Reilly under there, and I mean that's valid too, I guess. But yeah, I just don't have the energy to invest in guessing in this stuff because they're not throwing us anything worth chewing on.
No, I mean, the only thing that they threw us was the aforementioned Ron Friend's panel, the how we played with those two panels in the first Clones Conspiracy. That was, to me, the only tangible clue that there might have been something there, because there hasn't been anything else. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, we got more during the Goblin Mason Banks thing.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's there and we're just not seeing it, but it certainly doesn't seem to be that way.
Right. Well, anyway, Elliot, thank you for your thoughts. And thanks, as always, for calling in. We don't have a ton of spider news, Dan, but there is one item we want to get to. So why don't we cue the music for that?
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
All right, Mark, spider news. You wanted to talk about this, so I'm going to let you broach this subject.
Oh, boy.
I don't know that I want to touch this one, but go for it. It's not the kind of thing we typically talk about.
Well, no, I don't. Okay. For one, I don't think this is that scandalous. So I don't know if, who of our listeners are out on Twitter a lot, but, I'll have to say that earlier today, we're recording this on, Thursday the 17th?
Mm-hmm.
I went on to Twitter and I was like, oh, I haven't seen anything from Dan Slott in a while. And, I knew we were going to be talking about this issue, issue 21 tonight. So I was like, oh, let me see what he's saying on Twitter about it. And I went to go search on Dan Slott. And, first I thought it was weird that his profile didn't come up. And Dan, I got to be honest with you, when I did that, the first thing I thought was, did he block me?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Like, after all these years, did I finally get blocked for not, even though I've never antagonized him or anything, but like people have always joked to me like, oh, when is he going to block you? And then I did some more searching and a couple of sites were reporting on it that Dan Slott quit Twitter, which is kind of like amazing to me because, you got to keep in mind that Dan Slott, I mean, for better or for worse, Dan Slott kind of has like emblemized that idea of creator access on social media for years now. I mean, it became famous when, during Amazing Spider-Man 700, I mean, he received death threats on Twitter. I mean, that was where this whole, like, Dan Slott will block you if you harass something came from. And again, I've never harassed him. I do want to be clear about that. I just say negative things about his comics on our website and on our podcast, but that's called criticism.
Not how you do it, Mark.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm snarky, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. Like, to me, I'm quite shocked by it because, I mean, I guess my attitude is, and I know that, Dan Slott talks about more than just comics on Twitter. He talks about movies and politics and stuff, and certainly in the latter, in politics, there's been some very intense things going on the last few weeks, and maybe that is what was the breaking point. But as someone who's kind of stuck it out in the face of all this and has kind of embraced this personality of this combative personality on social media, to see him quit, I'm very surprised by it. I mean, does it come as any surprise to you?
A little bit. I'm mostly just kind of like, I think my response when you first told me about this was, good for him,
Right.
like, because he just, like what he's saying or not, it just seems like he's constantly, caught up in arguing with people on that platform, whether it's bleeding cool and whether I agree with him or not. But like, I mean, I dream of leaving social media, although my career is mostly run on social media. I don't think it'll hurt Dan Slott's career to leave social media. He's pretty established at this point. Like, I just kind of I want to tell him, like, hey man, you're free now. Like, free up that part of your mind,
Genie, you're free.
What?
Genie, you're free.
Yeah. You don't have to grant our third wish. No, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but I mean, I would see him on there all the time, and I would interact with him, and I enjoyed interacting with him on there. But I just don't know how much good it does, to be so forward facing. But I mean, it's his right. That's why I don't really like talking about this, is because I feel like I'm being his nanny. Like, he should be able to do whatever the hell he wants and express whatever opinion he wants, regardless of how I feel about it. But
but putting that aside, I mean, putting the controversial stuff aside, I mean, like, I back when he was a little more responsive to me, I found Dan to be a resource on Twitter. I mean, like, if I was, I could pepper him with a question about something that he either worked on or that I knew he knew about, and he would occasionally get back to me. And like I said, like, I mean, in addition to the negative stuff, I mean, he did kind of emblemize this idea of creator accessibility on social media, and you do got to wonder. I mean, you joke about it, and I've joked about it too, that like, oh man, if I could just give up social media, but my career kind of depends on it in a lot of ways. But like, if when Twitter started becoming big, 7-8 years ago, all these celebrities and, in terms of comic book world, these creators, it was kind of like breaking down these barriers between them and fans, and whether it always netted positive results or not, it didn't seem to matter. It was like, yeah, but it's there and you should probably be doing it. If someone like Dan Slott can just delete his account and walk away from it, I mean, do others follow suit? That and I don't know. Like, to me, that would then what does social media become if more and more of these people just kind of get fed up with the negativity and walk away? Because it does kind of create a cesspool for those of us who are still trying to make something useful out of this platform. But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes even further beyond someone like Dan Slott. I think Twitter has a problem in general in terms of, harassment and ugly language, and Twitter is not alone, although Facebook has a certain barrier that you actually have to friend someone to really interact with them in most cases. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you and I blocked someone a couple weeks ago, and we've experienced some ugliness. I mean, not to the level of Dan Slott. I don't know. I mean, I expect he'll be back in a couple weeks. You know, I for a guy who used it as frequently as he did, I just can't imagine someone going cold turkey. But I don't know. I mean, it's funny because I just wanted to congratulate him and say, like, hey, you freed up that part of your brain. Go work on your comics and don't worry about what people like you or I say about them. You know, like,
right.
Yeah, just go be yourself and ignore us. You know,
and Lord knows his taskmasters at Marvel have made it clear, like that there are times that they prefer you not be tweeting.
Yeah, who was it? Tom Brevoort that was just like stop tweeting or something.
He's like less tweeting, more writing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at it from that historical kind of perspective of in terms of access. It kind of became the new Stan soapbox. You know, you could really follow these guys and find out what they thought. Yeah.
Well. You know, again, I'm not trying to invade his privacy, and you know, now certainly if he ever does come back, I'll definitely get blocked for bringing this up. But you know, I all the same, like, I mean, I enjoyed a lot of what Dan Slott did on Twitter, and even the stuff that I didn't enjoy, I would get a laugh out of it. Even, you know, whether I'd be laughing at him or with him, it just, I think it depended, but you know what I mean? Like I was entertained by it, and I never engaged in I wouldn't engage with the ugliness with anyone on social media. So it's like, you know, I guess I'm just a little disappointed that, you know, it took probably somebody else to ruin it for everyone else, you know, like, that's all. And I would hate to see others start kind of following his lead and leaving us with just each other to harass on Twitter.
I wish I could take the kind of complacent attitude that you did. I would get into the middle of the fights between him and Rich Johnson to the point that they were tweeting at me and including me in them.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was like, can't you see that you're both coming at this a little hot? Like, why don't we cool down? And the voice of reason was I don't know if it was appreciated or not, but it was certainly included. So I don't know. I wish everybody could just kind of tone it down like 20 degrees, you know, so we could all enjoy these platforms. But
there we go. So speaking of platforms, Dan, why don't we talk about our friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club?
Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, stroke a refrigerator, we can show you how to, and when will you be then? You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to our podcast, The Amazing Spider Talk. Mark and I's weekly passionate look into the world of Spider-Man. For those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon page called the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. It's through your support that we keep the show continuing, and the club is our way of giving you even more awesome content alongside our podcast and fan site. If you decide to become a member of the club, you'll gain access to weekly free digital comics and get all kinds of awesome goodies in the mail, including t-shirts, mugs, bumper stickers, rare Spider-Man comics, and much, much more. On today's show, we have one new member to the club that we'd like to thank. That member is Nick Harrison. So thanks again, Nick, for helping to keep our show going. Remember that we're running a competition to all of our members to win a hardcover copy of The Death of Jean DeWolf, signed by none other than Peter David himself. So be sure to sign up for our Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club on the front page of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com to be considered to win. Thanks again for all our continuing patrons, and now back to the show.
S-W-A-R-M. A reanimated Nazi skeleton. Reviewing B titles while he's covered in bees. Actually, he's permanently permanently covered in bees. Actually, he's permanently covered in bees. He's coming for this podcast, he's coming for you. He's coming for this podcast, he's coming for you. It's time for Swarm's Bee Title Reviews. It's time for Swarm's Bee Title Reviews.
Hello, Dan. It is I, your old friend, Swarm. You thought you got rid of me last week, didn't you?
Well, I mean, you were tweeting at us about it, so I certainly couldn't ignore it. I saw that you got a Twitter account yourself.
Yes, I tweet. I go, drain the hive, hashtag. I have a hive mind to tweet with all you other peons. But I hear that you don't want to use me as much going forward. What is this nonsense?
I don't know anything about this. Well, where did you hear about this from? Did Mark say something about this? Mark, is this your idea?
Yeah. Let me explain. Sorry, Swarm, and don't sting me. But Dan and I. Dan, I have been thinking of some maybe new potential formats for Swarm's Bee Title Reviews. You know, as I opened up my subscription box from my local comic book shop the other day and got like another 6 B books in it. It's getting a little overwhelming, and I think like some of the more important B books that are coming out, or just the more buzzworthy ones. Sorry, Swarm, don't hurt me for that. Are kind of getting lost in the shuffle. So going forward, what we're going to do is, when there are new B books launching, like Renew Your Vows, for example. We'll talk about the new #1 issue, and then in addition to that, Dan and I are going to champion a book of the week, so to speak. We'll each pick our own book that we feel needs to be talked about for reasons good and bad. I think I don't want to make it sound like we're only going to be echo chambering and talking about good things. If we think that a book is really slipping after being good, or that a book really needs a new creative team or whatever, we'll talk about that too. But I think just to keep things more focused, wouldn't you say, Dan?
I think it's just kind of move us away from the kind of slavish format that we had been in. And like a lot of these books, we're saying the same things week in and week out. And now we can actually kind of have a little more depth if we want to on a particular title. It's just when we started this segment, with Flash, we thought it would be like a B book or two, and now that Spider-Man is half of Marvel's line, it's just a lot to keep up with all the time. And we're still going to read everything, but I think we're going to give you more value in terms of really talking about the books that we want you to read and giving you better reasons to read them. Does that sound right?
That is change I can believe in.
And now you're adopting nearly everybody's mantras here.
What is the difference between a hockey mom and a beehive?
I don't know, Swarm.
The beehive will sting you, stupid.
Okay, all right. So, Mark, last episode you weren't on. I talked to Kane about Renew Your Vows #1, and we both kind of gushed on it. So I thought perhaps we take this time to kind of see how you feel about that book. What did you think about Renew Your Vows #1?
Yeah, I mean, am I on the clock?
No, say whatever you want.
Right. I mean, but still, for the sake of brevity, I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I was also kind of waiting for like another gear to kick in on that story. I mean, it was a very quiet opening issue, which I think was by design, and I enjoyed it a lot. But certainly the intimacy of the characters. I mean, there was a lot of love for these characters in that comic, both in the dialogue and then how they were illustrated, which, given what we know about the creators, makes sense to me. But like that gear that was missing, did that ring familiar to you, Dan? I mean, it was like I just kept kind of waiting for the punch it Chewie, and it never went into that next gear.
Yeah, I mean, I think the normie Osborn stuff is certainly tantalizing. But yeah, for me, it was like Mole Man is not really, he did not like move me. Like there was the the hook of the issue was like not enough to really, keep me super excited. I mean, yes, I'm worried about Annie's well-to-do, and I loved it enough to, be excited to keep reading. But yeah, I'm waiting for there to be, because it's not like canon necessarily. Like I'm waiting for there to be that like high-level idea that really makes me go, oh, I get what this story is really going to be tackling, other than just the adventures of the Spider Family, which would be enough for me. But I think to put it up in that like rarefied territory, I need to know like what it's actually going to be about. Like Spider-Gwen is an alternate story, but it's about like toxic masculinity and police, brutality and kind of like young hipster culture. Like I know where that fits. I'm waiting to see like where this one, like what makes it unique.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the fact that both Jerry Conway and Ryan Stegman are so talented that even without that hook, I was still intrigued by this comic. But maybe you put some other creators on it. Like, I mean, we talked about it last episode, like that the new Prowler series, which was I felt missing a hook too, but it didn't have the strength of its creative team to kind of push it through anyway. So it to me that just it does bear watching. I mean, not to be cynical, but we had talked about months before the series came out, would this kind of like overshadow the main Spider books, and part of me wonders if it was kind of meant to be very neutral and toned down so as not to do that. I don't know.
That's
I mean, is that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's because certainly like when it was its own miniseries, it did feel a little more in your face. I mean, you had Peter killing Venom in that story to protect his family and stuff like that. Like there were like real stakes attached, and so far we don't know what those stakes are outside of everyone is kind of becoming familiar and with their powers, and someone can make a mistake, but like that kind of is cribbing what we saw a decade earlier with Tom DeFalco's Spider-Girl. So it's which is enjoyable. So it's not, this is not meant as like a dismissal of the series, but it is interesting to me. So I mean, for our old format, I would still call this buzzworthy, but like I wanted to love it more than I did. So
yeah, I'm waiting for there to be like kind of like the high level thematic, I guess, conflict for the family. Like in the original one, it was that nobody could show their powers, and they have a daughter whose powers are starting to develop. So that's the kind of conflict. Like if it's just a team of superhero family that goes out and fights monsters, that'll be fine. But like I feel like there needs to be some pushback, and I'm hoping that it's the normie Osborn thing that is that, even if that is kind of like an idea we saw play out in Spider-Girl.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So good stuff. We'll bear watching that, and obviously as the series comes along, I'm sure one of us will want to talk about it during this segment. So but now we don't have to do it every single time.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of the show. Mark, you ready to go home with this thing?
Yeah, let's take it home, buddy.
All right. Of course, you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and old Superior Spider Talk podcasts at superiorspidertalk.com, or find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube by searching for Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a review.
Yeah, additionally, be sure to check out our brother podcast, The Ultimate Spin, if you want to keep up with the adventures of Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen Stacy. Dan, next week, we're going to be taking the week off so we can hang out with our families and stuff, hopefully have some benign apolitical conversations around the turkey table, right? I've been seeing that's a storyline that's been showing up in a lot of media is, what to do about Thanksgiving dinner table talk. It's like, oh man.
I didn't want to have to think about that. Why do they put these elections so close to Thanksgiving?
I don't know, Dan. I don't know. So if people are desperate to hear from us in that interlude, where could they find you on the internet?
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter at Dan Gvozden or at Sup Spider Talk, which is our Spider-Man-oriented one, and all of my writing on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, well, you can find me, of course, at Chasing ASM blog on Twitter, and Dan, this thing that's been basically wrecking my life for the last 3 months, and I don't, it's not been wrecking my life. It's been consuming my time. It's getting near to an end, so maybe come early December, you might start seeing my writing again on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com. I should talk to you about that offline instead of throwing it at you here.
Blow the dust off your keyboard and jump right back in.
Yeah, well, you might see some stuff showing up again, folks, so be on the lookout.
Very exciting, very exciting. Mark, I didn't want to say this, but, I'm looking at you through Skype right now, and you're just not looking that great. Have you been to the doctor recently? I mean, don't get me wrong. Your face, it looks just ever so green. Like, if you really look at it, you could see the slightest hint of green. I mean, not like green enough that you could pull your mask off and frighten someone with how sick you look, but just green enough that if someone pointed it out to me and I really looked at it, I might see some hints of green. Anyway, have you been to a doctor recently, Mark? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, there's this doctor I like to see. He wears like this long blue trench coat and like one of those like submariner helmets over his head.
Okay.
Let's call him Dr. K. I wish his name was Dr. G, because then we could like high five over having the same name together. I haven't been really feeling great lately, Dan, ever since I kind of emerged from my spider cocoon.
Oh.
I have these powers. You might not know.
Is this because you're clone Mark again?
Wait. Oh no. Who's that in LA with you, Dan? It's the other. With great podcasts comes amazing spider talk. That's all I got. I can't do this anymore.
Don't miss the next